Hi, I'm Ashley McElwain, licensed marriage and family therapist and founder and CEO of Foundation Restoration. Welcome to Foundation Restoration's Real Talk podcast, where you'll find real people discussing real issues while offering real help at the intersection of clinical expertise and a biblical perspective. We're so glad you've joined us. Hello, friends near and far. It's so good to be together again. As always, I'm so grateful for you joining us. Happy spring. I hope that you are surrounded by birds singing and beautiful blooms and blossoms and lots of sunshine. I know here in Raleigh, North Carolina, I have been savoring all of the spring beauty. I love all of the blooms and the blossoms and the birds just fluttering about and singing their happy little songs. And again, all the sunshine and everything just coming to life. I love this time of year. Don't love the pollen. I'm not a fan of the pollen at all, but that's okay. Small price to pay for all of the beauty that comes along with it. So, friends, I hope that you're enjoying your spring and that the life springing forth all around you is a beautiful reminder that with different seasons come different blessings. And my hope is so renewed during spring, just seeing things that look like they're dead just spring forth all of this beauty. So I hope that you have a wonderful Easter that's coming up. I love Easter. What a joyful, hopeful season to remember that Jesus died, and in the darkest moments, there sprang forth life. 3 days later, Jesus rose again, and the hope that we have through Jesus and his resurrection and his great love for us. Wow, what a thing to celebrate and to find such joy and hope and peace in. I laugh because I have my son, Grayson, who is 5 years old. I think when he was about 2, I got in the habit of Christmas and Easter every year. I do a little video and I'd say, Grayson, what's Easter about? And I'd always wait for his answer. And I remember this one year, I was expecting him just to say, Jesus. And again, I think he was about 2. And it's the cutest little video. He says it in this little voice that I guess you'd probably have to see it to really get it. But he says, Jesus is alive. And I watch that video every year and I just laugh at it. And he says, that's the good news. And again, he's 2 and it's just the cutest thing ever. So I wish I could show it to you, because it would bring you, I'm sure, as much joy as it brings me. But moving on, welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about living with intentionality. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because this is just something I'm so passionate about. And so I'd ask you, is life happening to you, or are you making life happen? And I don't mean that probably in the traditional sense of maybe what's coming to mind. But I am meaning it more in that there are opportunities around us everywhere to live a life of purpose that changes lives and impacts our world. Oftentimes we're looking for the grand moments, the grand gestures, but it's truly in the simple, the small, the seemingly insignificant interactions in moments of life that we can change the climate of our world, that we can be the salt and light that Christ calls us to in Matthew 5:13 through 16. It's all about living with intentionality. So let's dive in. I'm going to do my traditional point 1, point 2. I kind of got my little bullet points for you guys to think about. So point number 1 is just purpose over possessions and position. And what I mean by that is that everywhere we look, we're told that our lives are about building our wealth, achieving the highest rank or position, acquiring more. The more you have, the more you'll be fulfilled. But honestly, you don't have to look far to see that more often leads to less. And what I mean by that is some of the wealthiest, most famous people are some of the emptiest. And I think that when we look at that, we realize it's because there is emptiness. There is searching when we think it's about stuff, and then we get the stuff and we realize, well, it's just stuff. We start finding, I think there's more to life than stuff. And so, it's in living a life of purpose that we find contentment and fulfillment that we crave and that we're looking for. But I guess the question then, right, is, well, what is purpose and how do we find purpose? And while I think everybody has kind of a different purpose, so to speak, of what God created them to do or accomplish, because we're all gifted in different, unique ways, I would say the overall purpose is living for more than stuff. It's looking for a heavenly harvest. We live for something more than what moth and rust can destroy, which we see in Matthew 6:19. God tells us that, again, work for that heavenly harvest. And what that really boils down to, I believe, in my heart of hearts, is that it's people. And when we are invested in the lives of others, when we are invested in relationships and loving others well, we find that there is a much greater sense of purpose and fulfillment in that. And the question is that we have to ask ourselves, how are we intentionally investing in the lives of others? And again, I think about how the Bible says it all comes down to love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. And so that is our ultimate purpose. So that brings me to point 2. Don't overcomplicate the opportunity for impact. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is thinking that in order for their lives to be impactful, they have to be grand. It has to be a grand scale. And the truth is that change happens in the small and the simple. Impact happens in the day-to-day interactions that we have, and we often just overlook and underestimate them. And what I mean by that is that, again, we're often looking for, okay, what can I do that's huge? But it's really way more simple than that. And I think if you even pause and ask yourself, what are some of the most impactful things that have happened to you recently? I think you would probably say it's something rather simple. And it probably involves another person. And, I think about how sometimes somebody just saying something really encouraging that was unexpected can really be such a blessing. I recently had a client reach out that I haven't seen in at least 7 years. And they said, I'm just going through such a crazy time in my family, and you're the best therapist I've ever had, and I just need you. And I was so overwhelmed that here 7 years had passed, and this person still remembered me and spoke highly of me, and to know that I had some impact, which I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't say that I thought, oh, this person, I totally, God used me to totally help change their life. But here they were just giving me such a sweet compliment that I wasn't expecting. And I just remember sitting there saying, thank you, God, for using me. I was so humbled and so overwhelmed. And so, I think if you pause and think about moments that have encouraged you in the last week, what did they entail? I think you'd be surprised how simple they were, and that it usually involves another person. Again, today alone, I remember I remember as if it was forever ago. It was today. But, I was playing with my little guy, and he stopped. He said, we were listening to, if you've heard that song, like, my little buttercup is the sweetest thing. He stopped. It had just randomly come on his little playlist, and he said, Mommy, yeah. He goes, you're my buttercup. And that little word of encouragement that was so unexpected, it just filled my heart. And I'm sure that if you sit and think about those things, and I would encourage you to do that you'll realize that some of the biggest moments of joy and encouragement in the past week or two came from relatively small things. And so that's what I would encourage you, that every day there are opportunities for you to make an impact. Make eye contact, smile at somebody, call someone by their name. This is something I always tell my son. This is as much as I can. I really try to look at someone's name tag and, thank you, John. Thank you, Kathy. How are you doing today, Kathy? It could be the grocer, someone checking you out at the grocery store. It could be your waitress. It could be, again, a stranger. It just, if you see a name, say a name. It just helps people feel so seen. Say hello to someone, ask how someone's doing, and then pause to actually hear the answer. How many times do we say, "Hey, how's it going?" and we walk past, like not even pausing to hear the response. And that's something that I know for me, I really try to be very intentional with is, "Hey, how are you?" And then waiting for the response. And, maybe it's picking up the tab for someone unexpectedly. You're at a coffee shop and you buy the coffee for the person behind you. Maybe it's just following up with a friend or your loved one or, your coworker or someone regarding something they have going on. Maybe they had mentioned that things were tough with their kid and you follow up and say, a couple weeks ago you mentioned, or a month ago or a couple months ago, you mentioned things have been kind of challenging with your kid. How's that going? Or if an appointment's coming up, hey, I know that you mentioned you have an appointment coming up. Are you nervous about it? How are you doing with that? What kind of appointment? Is there anything I can do for you? Those are such simple but impactful things. And again, if you think about in your own life, if somebody did that for you, I think you'd get that. But sometimes we just underestimate how simple our impact can be. So don't overcomplicate the opportunity. I think about, so this is, I love really trying to, if I am talking to, if I'm at a waitress, if I'm at a restaurant, talking to my waitress or really treating them like a human being, not just somebody there to serve me. There was a deli. We used to go to the grocery store, and almost every time, because we go the same day and time to pick up our groceries, and there was a lady at the deli that usually helped us with our lunch meat and cheese, and I'd always say hello and look her in the eyes and call her by her name. And just in doing that, it was like over a couple weeks, and the conversation started growing. And then before I knew it, we were praying, and now we send her Christmas cards. And it's just incredible to realize how seeing people can make such a big difference, and that seeing people can be as simple as just literally looking at them and calling them by name. Point number 3, just realize that you matter. What you do matters. I think about 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. Everything we do matters. Our lives matter. We were created on purpose, for a purpose. And that is to use everything God has given us, right? God's given us everything that we have. Our talents, our time, our treasures, to love Him and love others. It all boils down to those two things. So when we view things through that lens, how we treat people at every juncture and in every opportunity or in every interaction, that is an opportunity to reflect Christ, to show love. And that goes inside, outside our homes. We have to be careful to watch what we say, how we say it, to actually see the people that are around us. The most seemingly insignificant interaction can save a life. I've heard firsthand, in my line of work, like I've learned people are carrying a lot of things. As a marriage and family therapist, working with individuals, couples, families, people are carrying so much, and we don't realize just how much people have on their hearts and minds more than ever. Like in our this day and age, and I know people say that all the time, but really, the amount of things that are in people's hearts and minds, it's astounding. People are carrying so much. And, I know for a fact, I've heard people say, you know what, I was thinking about taking my own life. And a friend called and just said, you were on my heart and mind, and I thought I'd reach out to you. How are you? Or I've heard someone say, I was contemplating suicide, and I was at the grocery store, and someone said hi to me. They saw me. And we don't realize what people are carrying around. We don't realize the impact that we can have in something as simple as a smile, a genuine hello. It can breathe life into somebody who maybe just has felt invisible, and you saw them even for a moment, and you may not have had a whole heart-to-heart with them, but you saw them, and that can make a huge difference. So do not underestimate the fact that you matter. Your life matters. Your interactions, they matter. And the things you say matter. I think about Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death. Even a word can bring forth life in someone. Again, it could be a compliment or a word of encouragement. You're at the store and you're just picking something up, but you see, somebody who has a beautiful outfit on. You say, wow, that color looks amazing on you. Wow, I love your hair. Again, just smiling at somebody. And saying hello, acknowledging them. We really underestimate how absolutely deficient our culture is in meaningful interactions. And so when your life and the way you interact, when you realize it matters, especially as a follower of Jesus, you have the ability to change a life and to honestly impact somebody in such a huge way, and you don't even realize it. And we should all the more be intentional in our interactions and the way that we conduct ourselves, because we do represent Jesus. When we are a follower of Jesus, everything we do represents him. And that doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. But again, it paints everything we do in a very different light, because at the end of the day, it points to our boss, Jesus. And kind of like we sit with our kids, we send our kids out and we're like, please, you're a reflection of this family. I know as a mom, sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, I'm mortified. Trust me, we don't allow that in our home. But you just think about it, and it's like what we do out and about, we are pointing everything back to our Heavenly Father. So let's represent him well. And that would bring me to, let's see, we're point number 4. I have my numbers off because I added a few. So meaningful interactions in service. Our world, it says we should live for the fame, the followers, the audience, right? Everything we do has to be broadcast. And I'm not even saying that's wrong. When we broadcast something good and positive, right? It's good to see some good things and to share in victories. But I think a lot of times what happens is that we are broadcasting everything we're doing because we want everybody to see it. And we have to be intentional in asking ourselves why we do what we're doing. Is it for our glory? Because as believers, that can't be the answer. Is it for our glory? Are we building our kingdom? I think about the Tower of Babel, right? It's like all of a sudden they kind of cut God out of the equation and said, let's build our own thing. Oh, look at us. We're amazing. And the truth is that really was a sin of Satan. It was the pride, right? That he thought he was so great and he wanted to be God. He wanted to elevate himself above God. And so what happened is he lost everything, because the reality is God and we are not. And so we have to pause and ask, what are we doing this for? Is it for our glory? Are we building our kingdom? Are we doing this for God's glory and for his kingdom? Are we looking for instant gratification too? Because that is the draw, right? Everything we want. I want to know. I was just laughing about this. I'm like, it's so funny. My son will say, Mommy, we sang a song at school today. I don't know what it's called, but I want to hear it. Okay, and it can be as simple as, okay, Google, what song is this? And he's singing it, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, boop, there's the song. Add it to his playlist, and okay, now we got it. We're playing it. Everything, I was like, isn't that crazy? I remember the days where you had to call on the radio station and make a request, and you sat there by the radio and you put your tape in and you were hoping you were there and you hit record. gosh, I mean, I'm dating myself, I guess, but there was nothing instant gratification. And yet now it's just everything we want is at our fingertips. And so sometimes that just creates a sense of instant gratification. If I do something for someone, I want to know the impact. I want to know it now, and I want to broadcast it. And I want it to be profitable to some degree. I want it to make me feel good. I want it to build my followers, my audience, make me money. But the reality is, our job really is just to sow the seeds. Again, in that simple smile, in that hello, in that intentional relationship building of, hey, I see that same grocer every time I go to the grocery store, and I'm just going to make an effort to make eye contact, say their name, check in. How are you today? Goodness, it's good to see you again. What did you do this last week? What do you have coming up? Anything I can be praying for you? Thank you so much for putting my groceries in my car. It's that, and it's just consistency in that really creates the pathways for God to do his work, right? And for him to reap the harvest. I think about with a seed. We just planted a bunch of seeds, a bunch of different things. My little guy and I do that every year just to watch the miraculous transformation. And isn't that so? I think that is so metaphorical that we plant the seed and we can enjoy the harvest, but we have no control over the miraculous transformation of that little seedling into a plant. And so it's incredible how God takes this seed and he breaks it open and he allows it to poke through. Yes, we tend that garden. Yes, we planted that seed. Yes, we water it. Yes, we tend to it and care for it. But we didn't create the seed. We're not the one who makes the seed transform into the plant. And we're not the ones who makes the fruit grow. And so I think that's so metaphorical for us and what we do in our interactions. We plant the seeds of faith and love, but we await God's incredible and miraculous transformation into a harvest. And a lot of times those things we don't even know. Sometimes we don't even see the harvest. We just have to trust that we are building a heavenly harvest for him, and that we are building for him, building his kingdom. And I think we need to know that everything we do has to be done with intention, that it's for the glory of God, not ours. Because if the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, like the God of all, came to serve and not be served, which we see in Matthew 20:28, how much more should we be about serving others? Like, if Jesus, who is sitting on the throne in heaven right now, if he came to serve and not be served, why do we think that our life is about being served? We should be all about serving, loving, caring for, ministering to others, and doing it so well. Everything we have to realize, like my intelligence or my money, anything I have, God gave that to me. I'm just a steward. I'm not an owner. And so my job is just to be intentional, to use the gifts that God blessed me with to bless others, and to do it for his glory, to do it for the benefit of others, and to bless them. And then that brings me to my final point number 5, and that is the hidden blessing in all of this. When Proverbs 11:25 says that he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Acts 20:35, it's better to give than to receive. What happens when we live with intentionality for others is, one, it gets our eyes off ourselves. It gets our eyes off our problems, off of striving, off of discontentment. And what we find is that when we are seeking to love God and love others with all that he's entrusted us with, we end up being blessed and refreshed and finding a fulfillment and a purpose that we were kind of always looking for anyway. We don't do it for ourselves. We don't serve others and do it looking for that reward. But in the process, we do receive the reward of being blessed and fulfilled. And what a gift. What a gift that is. There's such joy in living with intentionality. My encouragement to you is to be intentional today and every day, big or small. Inside your home, outside your home, look for ways that you can be a blessing. Love others. Shine brightly. I think about Colossians 3:23 through 24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. And then I leave you with 1 Corinthians 13:1 through 3. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Friends, live with an intentional love in all that you do, in all that you say, and know that that life of intentionality, it makes a difference. It really does. Well, friends, this concludes this episode of the Real Talk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad you did. Remember, you were handcrafted by God, are dearly loved, and greatly needed in this world. We look forward to seeing you back here next time. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Real Talk. To stay connected, follow Foundation Restoration on Instagram and Facebook at FND Restoration, or visit us at www.foundationrestoration.org for more information. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to follow or subscribe and to leave us a 5-star review so more people can find our show. Foundation Restoration is a 501c3 nonprofit ministry that believes marriage is the heartbeat of society and exists to equip, strengthen, and restore marriages through clinical expertise and a biblical perspective. Please consider supporting our ministry with a tax-deductible donation at www.foundationrestoration.org. Your gift makes programs like this possible. Thank you for your generosity and partnership.